She knows the way for the big payday is a Prince Harry-style autobiography. A $20 million advance, like Harry received, is what she wants.
As far as we know, this is a real email. This is in the Epstein files, yet nobody's touching it. It is very telling, again, how the mainstream media is refusing to address this.
Radar Online is reporting that multiple publishers have already reached out to Sarah Ferguson about locking in a tell-all book deal. One insider went further, claiming she could secure an agreement substantial enough to give her genuine long-term financial stability. And here's the detail that is making certain people in California very uncomfortable right now. The Sussex camp, the same couple who reportedly pulled in around $20 million from Spare, are said to be genuinely nervous about how their private moments and behind-the-scenes conversations might be portrayed by someone who was actually in the room when things were unfolding. Tom Sykes from the Daily Beast reported that palace courtiers are quietly circulating concerns about what he described as a pulling a Harry scenario, meaning a massive publishing payday. In exchange for a story the royal institution would have absolutely zero ability to influence, shape, or contain. The palace's track record of controlling damaging narratives is not exactly impressive, and a Ferguson memoir would represent another front they'd have no defense against. But here's the piece most people are still not connecting. US publishers may have passed on Ferguson's early pitch, but that does not mean UK publishers said no. It does not mean Australian publishers said no. And it absolutely does not mean a streaming arrangement or a major televised interview isn't still very much alive as an option. An insider speaking to OK. Magazine revealed that Ferguson has been closely studying the exact strategic playbook Harry and Meghan executed. The televised interview first, then the streaming content, then the headline-dominating book.
The press is completely ignoring this. The press does not want to touch the fact that Meghan was called as a witness by Virginia Roberts, who said that she was a close associate of Prince Andrew. And of course, it's not in anybody's best interest to have Meghan Markle testify because they know that she knows a lot. And this is why this woman is flaunting her impunity around or feels untouchable.
According to that source, she views that three-step sequence as a proven formula for both hitting back at the institution and building lasting financial security. The insider added that Ferguson is seriously weighing that exact path as she prepares to move completely outside the boundaries of royal loyalty. If that strategy moves forward, the fallout for the firm could be significant. But the most immediate driver pushing this entire situation is not strategy or revenge. It is straightforward financial desperation. The money situation surrounding Ferguson right now is genuinely serious. And that pressure changes everything about how far she might be willing to go. Now, here is the angle that almost nobody is discussing: the specific connection between Sarah Ferguson and Meghan Markle. And once you understand the depth and timing of that relationship, it becomes immediately clear why Meghan's exposure in a Ferguson memoir could be far greater than most people have considered. Most public coverage of this dynamic stays at the surface: two women with complicated relationships to the same royal institution. But the reality, according to multiple reports, runs considerably deeper than that.
Eugenie not only went to the Super Bowl with him, we've seen her in Montecito with her husband having dinner with Harry and Meghan. Eugenie lived in Frogmore Cottage amongst their things, amongst Meghan's journal.
Reports indicate that Princess Eugenie and Meghan developed a genuinely close friendship. Not the polite performative warmth that characterizes many royal relationships, but something that appeared to be real. In Omid Scobie's book Finding Freedom, Eugenie reportedly described Meghan as just the tonic for Harry. The two couples spent time together on double dates and private getaways, including a trip to Lake Como with the Clooneys, the kind of experience that builds genuine intimacy and trust between people. That wasn't diplomatic socializing, that was friendship. Then, in 2020, when Harry and Meghan relocated to California, Princess Eugenie and her husband, Jack Brooksbank, moved directly into Frogmore Cottage, the Sussex home that had been renovated with millions in public funds. For a period of time, they were living inside Harry and Meghan's former residence during one of the most turbulent and consequential stretches in recent royal history. And here's the detail that makes this entire situation significantly more complicated. Eugenie's mother is Sarah Ferguson.
That memoir, or a memoir of that scale, would, of course, revisit some of the most controversial moments in royal history, including the fallout from Megxit.
That connection is not incidental. It is central to everything. That bond reportedly formed and deepened during an extremely vulnerable period for Meghan. When she first joined the royal family, she was adjusting to an unfamiliar institution, an unrelenting media environment, and a system with rules and expectations she had not fully anticipated. According to reports from multiple outlets, Eugenie was one of the people Meghan genuinely felt safe opening up to during that period. She shared personal frustrations. She described difficult behind-the-scenes moments. She made observations about palace life that she believed were being shared in confidence between trusted friends, not stored as potential future material. That meanwhile, Ferguson's own situation has been deteriorating with remarkable speed. Tom Sykes described her current position in blunt, unflinching terms, completely without an official royal role, no access to public funding, and very little protection from the ongoing fallout connected to the York family.
That Meghan utilized Beatrice and Eugenie to get closer to Prince Harry, and I think that that's an element of the story that Harry and Meghan leave out.
In one devastating week, 7 charities reportedly severed ties with her after old connections to Jeffrey Epstein resurfaced. Epstein was someone Ferguson had publicly described as her financial advisor, a connection that has continued generating serious reputational damage long after his death. Her former husband, Prince Andrew, has lost his royal titles and faces ongoing intense scrutiny over allegations connected to his past associations. The financial picture being assembled through various reports is genuinely alarming. Several of Ferguson's business ventures have reportedly closed. Outstanding debts are said to still be attached to some of those operations. Her public appearances have become increasingly rare. Reports placed her at Paracelsus Recovery in Switzerland, a private wellness facility where stays reportedly run approximately $17,000 per night. That is not a standard health retreat. That is where extremely wealthy people go when a crisis has moved beyond what ordinary support structures can manage.
She's gone from a £13,000 a night Zurich wellness retreat to a spa hotel, a VIP spa hotel in Ireland. She's been to the Middle East begging for money. She's got no economic options left. No one's giving her money anymore.
Additional reports describe her moving between borrowed private properties, upscale estates, and retreats while people close to her quietly confirmed to the press that her financial situation is under serious pressure. And history makes one thing absolutely clear about Ferguson. She is not someone who stays quiet when pushed far enough. Back in 1996, following her divorce from Prince Andrew, she released a memoir titled My Story. A single passage in that book, describing borrowing Princess Diana's shoes and later discovering she had developed plantar warts, reportedly devastated Diana so profoundly that their friendship never recovered. They never had the chance to reconcile before Diana's death. That moment alone confirmed that Ferguson was willing to put things in print that made the palace deeply uncomfortable, and that she was willing to do it regardless of the personal consequences for the relationships involved.
She needs the cash. She thinks it's already too late for her daughters because William is slowly marginalizing them.
The current family picture around her is equally complicated. Radar Online reported that Princess Eugenie has been setting up accommodation for her mother at an oceanfront villa in Portugal, a property estimated at around $4.7 million. Prince Andrew, meanwhile, reportedly spends the majority of his time at Royal Lodge, largely withdrawn from public life and privately expressing frustration about losing his titles and public standing. The York family portrait in 2026 is one of a former senior royal engulfed in controversy, a mother reportedly edging toward a revealing publication, and a daughter attempting to maintain her own royal standing while managing loyalty to both her family and the institution.
Fergie has secrets, and her financial desperation takes her to dark places, cash for access. Yeah. So I do believe that the Sussexes could and should be worried about this new development.
One person close to Ferguson reportedly told OK magazine that a fully honest memoir from her could reveal where the bodies are buried in the royal family. Those were the exact words used. Another source added that the push toward publication appears to be driven equally by financial necessity and by a desire to reshape how the public understands her story. After confronting serious health challenges, becoming a grandmother, and watching her position inside the royal world systematically dismantle around her, the circumstances of her life today bear little resemblance to what she once had. And the royal household's current response suggests they understand exactly how dangerous her potential next move could be. According to In Touch Weekly, certain members of the royal household have already discussed the possibility of pursuing legal action against Ferguson to block a potential tell-all before it produces what they described as lasting damage.
I'm not sure how far Fergie would go. Perhaps Meghan and Andrew have crossed paths. I mean, it's something that I'm not sure will even come to light. I mean, it's highly suspicious given the circles that Andrew and Meghan have obviously floated in. You know, we have photographic evidence of Meghan hanging around with friends of, you know, who Andrew did, the Epstein circle.
Think about the significance of that for a moment. Legal threats over a book that has not been written, finalized, or even formally contracted. That level of preemptive anxiety reveals exactly how seriously palace insiders are treating the possibility of Ferguson speaking freely and without restraint. Reports also claim that Prince William has begun actively creating distance from the York branch of the family. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie have reportedly been quietly excluded from certain prominent royal events, including Royal Ascot. Sources suggest that family members in their circle have received guidance to limit public appearances. Royal biographer Andrew Lowney added a particularly harsh perspective during a conversation with the Daily Express, arguing that both princesses should eventually relinquish their royal titles altogether, pointing out that Beatrice is now legally known as Mrs. Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, and suggesting that without royal designations, public interest in either woman would diminish rapidly.
I believe that Andrew and Meghan have crossed paths. Meghan was friends and going on holidays with Epstein's girlfriend. There's no way that you can't tell me Meghan wouldn't have got an invite through some of her friends to attend the big lavish parties that Epstein was known for throwing with lots of girls, some professional, some not, some models, some D-list cable TV actresses desperate for...
That assessment, however harsh, reflects how dramatically and irreversibly the York family's standing has shifted. And this is precisely where the Meghan Markle dimension of this story becomes genuinely significant. If Beatrice and Eugenie's official standing inside the royal structure continues to erode, a critical question emerges. What exactly would they still be protecting? What leverage would remain to keep private stories from the past contained? The palace's traditional mechanism for keeping potentially damaging people quiet has always been reputation and access. The implicit threat that speaking out means losing what little institutional connection remains. But that leverage only functions when the people involved still believe they have something meaningful to lose. Ferguson has already lost her formal royal position, the majority of her charitable roles, and much of her public standing.
When you have been lied about for a series of years, how hurtful that is. So imagine that for over a period of months and years, and you know that it isn't true.
If Eugenie's position continues to contract in parallel, the calculus around speaking changes dramatically. And that shifting calculus is precisely why some royal observers believe Meghan Markle should be watching Ferguson's next move with very close attention. Because a Ferguson memoir might not simply contain royal gossip or historical grievances. There are specific documented controversies that such a book could revisit with first-hand proximity, and the details that could emerge from those revisitations could directly challenge the public narrative Meghan has built with significant effort over several years. Take the bridesmaid dress dispute from the period surrounding Harry and Meghan's wedding. During the Oprah interview, Meghan stated clearly that a disagreement with Kate left her in tears. Multiple royal writers, including Valentine Lowe, subsequently reported palace staff accounts suggesting the confrontation may have unfolded differently from how it was described publicly. The palace reviewed the matter internally but never released its findings.
We all know that they behaved badly. We all know that they treated staff badly. We all know that Meghan definitely bullied everybody and anybody that she could, whether it be the Queen's chefs, the gardeners, Catherine and William's nanny, the Queen's dresser. I mean, Meghan really was a force when she joined that family of just being...
At the time those events were occurring, Princess Eugenie was moving within the same close circle as the wedding party. And she was one of Meghan's most trusted connections inside the royal family during that exact window. Friendships built on that level of trust routinely involve private conversations, the kind that never reach public interviews or published accounts. If Meghan shared her genuine, unfiltered version of that dispute with Eugenie, and if Eugenie carried that account into later conversations with her mother, Ferguson could potentially be holding a second-hand version of events that differs meaningfully from what was presented on international television to an audience of millions.
Here's what I would say about that. I think it's very important to shift this idea that play the opposite and make sure you can be taken seriously. My point in all of this is that no matter what you look like, you should be taken seriously.
Then there are the workplace conduct allegations that emerged in 2018. Palace staff filed a formal internal complaint describing difficult behavior connected to Meghan during her time as a working royal. Reports identified Jason Knopf, who served as communications secretary for the Sussex household, as the person who submitted the concern through official channels. A palace review was reportedly conducted. The findings were never made public. The Sussex camp categorically denied the allegations. During that same period, Aunt Princess Eugenie was present within the same institutional environment, close enough to Meghan to hear her personal interpretation of events, but also connected enough to the broader palace world to absorb what staff members were privately saying on the other side of those allegations. Whatever conversations passed between them during that turbulent stretch could now reside in Ferguson's awareness as sensitive, potentially explosive material.
Who was Virginia Giuffre's attorney, wanted Meghan Markle to give evidence in the civil trial, saying that there were things about Andrew that she knew.
That's true.
The timeline surrounding the Sussex exit from royal duties presents another significant vulnerability. Harry and Meghan publicly framed their decision to step back as a last resort, a reaction to feeling unsupported, overwhelmed, and unable to continue under impossible circumstances. However, certain insiders have suggested that internal discussions about departing may have begun considerably earlier than the official narrative acknowledged. Even Finding Freedom referenced early private conversations about leaving royal life. If Meghan was discussing those plans confidentially with Eugenie during 2019, well before any public announcement.
Jeffrey looks very forward to hosting dinner on November 30th at 8 p.m. at Martin Novak's Institute located at 1 Braddles Square, Suite 6. Please have the guests call or Corinna on their cell as the guest approaches the Institute so they can come down and let them in. Thank you, Leslie, assistant to Jeffrey Epstein.
A memoir framing the Sussex exit as a carefully constructed long-game strategy rather than a desperate last resort would fundamentally reshape how millions of people in the United States and internationally understand the entire Sussex story. That distinction alone would be one of the most consequential reframings in recent royal coverage. And then there is the Soho House connection, the one that predates Harry entirely. Before the royal relationship began, Meghan and Eugenie reportedly moved through overlapping elite social circles tied to Soho House in London. Marcus Anderson, a prominent executive within the Soho House membership network, has been credited with facilitating the circumstances that led to Meghan and Harry's first meeting. Those exclusive social environments, from roughly 2013 to 2016, have recently attracted renewed scrutiny in media coverage, connected to broader conversations about powerful private networks and controversial figures operating within them.
So there is a good chance that Meghan does know something about Andrew because she never said anything. Harry never said anything with all of their attacks. And it makes you think, why? Why did they protect Andrew? And it might be because Andrew could have fired back and said that he does, in fact, know Meghan. It could be a real tit for tat moment for them.
Nobody is making direct allegations about Meghan's conduct in those circles, but questions about who knew whom, when specific friendships formed, what private conversations happened in those settings, and who made particular introductions are exactly the kinds of details a tell-all memoir could explore in depth. And once those details appear in a printed, published, commercially distributed book, they become extraordinarily difficult to neutralize or walk back. This is the core reason some commentators believe a Ferguson memoir represents a more complicated threat to the Sussex narrative than most royal coverage has acknowledged. It would not be the usual combination of vague rumors, anonymous tabloid sources, and hostile speculation. It would potentially be specific, time-stamped, first-hand adjacent accounts of real moments from inside royal life delivered through a woman connected to someone Meghan trusted enough to speak openly with during the most turbulent years of her time inside the institution. The financial gap between Ferguson's reported asking price and what the market offered reveals something worth examining carefully.
What they're ultimately scared of with a Fergie book is alternative versions of events coming out. Since Harry and Meghan have moved here, they've monetized their version of events, not necessarily the truth, but their truth through Spotify, Netflix, and Harry's book deal.
U.S. publishers apparently declined her early pitch, which was reportedly valued around $2 million. Prince Harry's spare secured advances estimated at approximately $20 million, a figure Ferguson was said to be targeting closer to $11 million for her own project. But the gap between what she asked for and what was initially offered does not necessarily reflect a lack of interest in the material itself. Publishers negotiate. Circumstances change. And when someone facing mounting financial pressure returns to the negotiating table with a lower number, attached to a manuscript packed with intimate royal details that no biographer has ever had direct access to, the initial no can transform into something very different with remarkable speed. Consider what specific chapter headlines from a Ferguson memoir could do to the current media cycle. A first-hand account of what Meghan privately said about the bridesmaid dress situation. A description of when Sussex departure planning actually began behind closed doors. Private observations about palace dynamics that never reached any interview or published account. Each of those individually would dominate the royal news conversation for weeks. Together, in a single book, they would generate a narrative earthquake. Sarah Ferguson no longer holds formal royal power. She no longer has official titles, institutional standing, or public roles that the palace can threaten to remove. The leverage that has historically kept potentially damaging people quiet around the royal family simply does not apply to her the way it once did. And that absence of leverage, combined with genuine financial pressure, accurate documented willingness to publish uncomfortable truths, and a family connection to someone who was inside Meghan's inner circle during critical moments, makes Ferguson one of the most unpredictable and potentially consequential figures in the current royal landscape. The people with the least left to protect inside a system are frequently the ones whose voices ultimately prove the loudest when the full story finally gets told. And right now, very few people connected to the royal world have less left to protect than Sarah Ferguson, which is precisely why the people in Montecito are reportedly paying very close attention to her next move.